What's up, everybody? Jon from Bad Catholic Dads here. After you listen to the episode, please check us out on patreon.com/badcatholicdads. Patreon is a platform we're using where listeners can financially support their favorite artists on a monthly basis. While there is no paywall for our content, we would appreciate any support you can offer. Your support can help make this community and content better. Please prayerfully consider any support you can offer. We would be grateful for any amount. Also, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We post all our updates there, so definitely check that out. Share with your friends and family, or anyone who you think would enjoy the podcast. Lastly, we're on YouTube, Google Play, and of course, the iPhone podcast app. Of course, my children are making all the noise in the world, and I love it. If you feel inclined, though, hit us up with that fresh 5-star review. Not only does it help the podcast out tremendously, we also read all the reviews on air. Thanks for listening to the Bad Catholic Dads podcast, and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, we are here, Bad Catholic Dads. I'm one of your hosts, Derek Rogers, along with Mr. Rock Band himself, John Perez. John, are you doing extraordinary tonight?
I'm all right, man. A little bit late, but we're going to get through it. Derek,
we are.
Your stress level is level 10 right now.
It is, man.
But, it's
up there.
Let me ask you a question, Derek. Are you the kind of person, when you get stressed or when stressful situations come, you're just like, bring it on? Or are you more like, I'm just going to take the blows and we're just going to roll with it?
It's so funny, man, because to be honest, like, I thrive in chaos.
Yeah.
But if there's stress, it's a different beast altogether. Like, all of a sudden, I kind of get tunnel vision and things just kind of pile in that tunnel. And I'm like, I want to get to the end, but so many things are blocking it. And everything just kind of constricts. And when I have deadlines for things and it just piles right up there and my stress level goes up. So, and especially at night is when I can kind of focus on things a little bit more. Yeah. But I mean, it gets me, I don't know, it gets me worked up. What about for you, John?
I think I'm the complete opposite. Whenever anything stressful happens in my life, I'll internally just take it in, and then I'll kind of just roll with the punches, like, because I think I have the attitude where, whatever's happening in your life is gonna happen. You know what I mean? And there's really nothing you can do about it other than kind of roll with it. And so my wife is the opposite, right? She's the kind of person who, when things are getting stressful, she'll make everyone else stressful.
Yeah.
In the way she reacts and the way she handles things. And I'm kind of the guy who's just like, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna handle this and we're gonna get through it. And whatever happens. But yeah, I'm probably
that's the opposite in my family.
Derek, yeah,
Bethany's the one that like tries to calm it down.
Yeah,
and it always seems to. And I think this happens for a lot of people. Problems get amplified, so it feels like a lot is piling up when they're just smaller things. But it feels like so much stuff just piles up, and I get to a point where I get really stressed, and then after that, I get like really slap happy. Like it's
delirious. Yeah. I hear you, man. I hear you.
So, John, this is episode 10. We've done
it. Episode 10. I said this a long time ago. Dude, once you make it to episode 10, you're a real podcast now.
I mean, that's a lot. That's a good. We have a decade of recordings.
We do. You just have to play. Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of a celebration too. I personally think the Bobby Angel interview was really fun.
Yeah, dude.
It was cool awesome to do our first tag team and like interview someone like that.
It was really interesting. Awesome. Yeah, it was a good interview. Bobby, if you're listening, thank you so much. Dude, this week has been positive for that episode. I don't know if you saw it, Derek, but just looking at all the numbers, it was our most highest rated, highest viewed, highest listened episode by a landmark.
That's awesome.
We got like a huge number of followers because of that episode. So for those who are doing podcasts or like want to get into podcasting, interviews and cross what is that word I'm looking for?
Not platforming.
Not platform. No, we don't believe in cross platforming, Derek. Cross public giving each other cross advertising or cross whatever, it's just like it helps. Like, especially if you don't have that big of a following.
Yeah.
And Bobby, due to, you know, the fact that he's Bobby Angel, but also because of his wife too. Thank you to Jackie and Bobby for featuring us, you know, on their Twitter, on their Instagram, on their website, I think. That really helped us out. So thank you so much.
And if there's any other Catholic touring artists or any on us that's popular that wouldn't mind us riding your coattails, we'd really appreciate it. So please. It's
almost like you Finding Nemo, right? Like you've seen Finding Nemo. Yeah. I've seen that a million times, especially in high school when the science teacher plays that all the time at the end of the year. It's that what is that? The great Australian reef, not reef.
Oh, the barrier reef.
Not the barrier reef. What's the current? What's that called?
Yeah. What is it? The oh my God.
Yeah, but boo. We're so lame, Derek. We don't even know. Yeah, it's like
watching Finding Dory, and
oh my
I can't,
gosh,
like the older one. I can't remember what crush.
We're just riding other people's currents, you know, for a little bit, and then we get off. You know what I mean? So, any Catholic dads out there who are semi-famous, have a big following, hit us up at badcatholicdads. Let's go.
You know, and the other thing we want to do is at some point we would like to interview someone who has a teenage kid.
Yes.
Because that's a different world that we would really like to pick your brain about. Especially with this topic we have today, we'd really like to know some of the struggles and the hardships of like having a teenager. John and I know enough of having, you know, a 0 to 5. Well, tomorrow Kateri turns 6.
Dude, I can't believe it, dude. Congratulations.
I know it's
6 years.
I
dude.
keep begging
6
her.
years.
I'm like, just let's take a year off. You can stay 5. You don't have to do as many.
Oh my gosh, dude, 5 is what, kindergarten? Man, after kindergarten.
Well,
boom.
So she's like kind of in between that. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, first grader next year. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Congratulations, dude. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I mean, we made it this far. So apparently, we're feeding her just enough.
There you go.
To get.
There you go.
So anything else you want to chat about before we get into our topic?
Dude. A couple announcements. A couple crazy things happened. Bobby Angel was like a week and a half ago, dude. So we haven't even like talked for like a week and a half. But dude, my son started walking finally.
Oh, congratulations!
Oh my gosh, we were just like hanging out. It was like the day before Mother's Day or the Friday before Mother's Day, and he just like was at my in-laws and he started walking and they sent us a video and then like, oh man, crazy.
Oh man, why couldn't he wait for you guys to be home?
I know, selfish little. I'm just kidding.
Yes, I know you like put up with him for that long.
Oh my gosh, it's good though. It's good. So we're happy about that.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's been crazy. The other thing I want to plug real quick before we get into it, for all my Bad Catholic Dad listeners, I just started a vlog on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/badcatholicdads. So my wife and I, if you don't know, we're building a house, or we're getting people to build us a house. We purchased to build a house, and I had this cool idea to vlog it. If you don't know what a vlog is, for all my dads who are as cool as I am, it's basically a video blog. You're kind of just like going through your day, but I wanted to make it a little bit more interesting and special for my Catholic brothers and sisters, and wanted to make each episode kind of a look into something into the faith, maybe our family, something we're struggling with, the joys, the ups and downs of not only building a house, but also it's called This House You're Building. And I get inspiration from Audrey Assad's. If you don't know, she's a pretty famous Catholic musician. The House You're Building. And our inspiration is kind of, God is building this house, right? God is building a house, a domestic church, as we call it, the family. And so I want people, kind of get a look into our lives of how we're building a house, our journey to build a house, but also how God is building our family as well. So check it out, patreon.com/badcatholicdads. For only $3, you get $3 a month. You get right into it. If you can wait, we'll publish all the episodes for free later on this year. But I just want to plug that before we head into that. So
Yeah, that's a cool. I think it's a really cool idea, and it would be awesome, man, to add in like if you can get like a little drone, and that'd be so cool. Like while they're
Dude,
building, you like fly through.
My
That'd be so
brother's got a
sick.
drone. Like, so when he comes visits, I gotta use it.
You
but,
have to.
I have
You
to.
have to because
I gotta
that
get you
looks
in
so
it.
awesome.
I have an idea for an episode just to kind of like explain what Bad Catholic Dads is and why we're doing it in a video form, because I feel like we don't have that in video form yet.
Yeah,
So
no, that would be fun.
it'll be fun.
That would be fun.
And your family's awesome, and you got the cutest kids ever. So bam, there you go, $3 easily.
$3 easy. Yes, we're good for something like that. That's good. So let's just jump into it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here, do you want to hit the tune? Hit the tune.
Hit the tune. Oh,
Hit the
okay,
tune
hit
first.
the tune. Okay.
Let's do it. All right. I'll give a preface into that then if while
Nice.
you're booting it up. So just recently,
Wait, can you hear this or no?
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
Good. Just
cool.
play that. There you go.
Indisposed, in disguises no one knows, has the face, lies the snake.
All right, that's all I can play before we get in trouble.
Before we get copyright, right? That's some of you may know that from just being around middle school, high school days. But that's Soundgarden, and Chris Cornell recently passed away. Initial reports were that it was a suicide. Family saying that it might be something else with like just a medication thing. But it was kind of sad news, surprise to some people. Some of you might know that stuff from Rock Band. Those were good days playing some of those songs. And I know just recently there's like been a lot of talk about the one show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why. And I know personally I heard it just from like schools and like some of the teenagers in my high school group for youth ministry were talking about it. And then I started talking to some parents and I started seeing it getting a lot of traction on social media. So I had decided that I need to watch this to know what the heck is going on with this, because I didn't know really that much about it. What about for you, John? Were you like, before you really got interested, what was kind of sounding off and like making you like think that you're going to see the show?
Oh, great question. For me, I just remember like watching Netflix and watching YouTube and seeing like the commercials of it, and I didn't really know what it was. I knew it had to do with teenage high school drama, but I didn't know anything further than that, because I would like pay attention to the commercial or whatever to the trailer on Netflix. Yeah, no, I think once it started picking up in Catholic circles of, hey, like, be careful watching this, or you should talk to your kids about watching this, or, for me as someone, I don't have a teen, and it would have been awesome to bring on someone who has someone a little bit older, as for kids, like in the teenage years, high school years. Take this with a grain of salt. Derek and I, we only have kids who are less than 6 years old, and so we don't know what it's like to have a teenager in this, watching the show. But anyway, but yeah, no. So for me, it just, whenever I saw it in the circles, and then I found out what it was truly about, like about suicide and kind of, and then I didn't want to watch it, Derek. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to watch it.
No.
I was like, it doesn't sound like something I want to watch. I'd rather watch something else. Let's watch, The Office reruns or something, And
yeah, it's totally in the opposite spectrum of, like some heavy and some light. Yeah.
Right. And then, but then I just kept seeing it on my feed, 13 Reasons Why is good, or Catholic, the Catholic perspective. And I just kept getting, kind of an itch to check it out. And then my wife actually ended up, watching it because she read the same things that I was reading about, like the Catholic perspective on it. And she watched it. She was on her maternity leave. She just ended that, by the way. So, shout out to her going back to work. No, so she binged it in like 2 days or 3 days, and she was telling me about it. And she was like, "You really should watch it." And I was like, "All right, let's do it." So that's kind of like my thing. So
Yeah. So did she watch it a second time, or you just were on your own? to
No,
watch it?
we watched it on our own, and then we
Wow,
would come back
interesting.
together.
Yeah.
Because the timing was so different because I had work the next day.
Okay.
While she was on her maternity leave, and so I would, I would get the first shift. We call when you have little kids, when you have newborns, infants, you call it your shifts. So I had the first shift, so which was about after dinner till about 11, and she would put our son to sleep, and then I would just watch it for a couple hours, until it was her, until she got on for the shift, the midnight burning oil graveyard shift, so I can get some sleep for my work. But I would just watch it, and then so we would watch it on our own. We wouldn't even watch together, Derek. So we would get together and we would talk about it and chat about it. But I just remember one night in particular, it was I don't know, it was really late at night, Derek, and I had my wife had just taken our daughter, and I just could not stop watching. I was like, I have to know what happens next. I have to kind of see what's going on with the next tape. And it was next thing I knew, it was 4 a.m, and I had work the next day, and I was like, yeah, here we are. So
Just sneaks up
how
on
about you, man? Did you watch it with your wife, or how did it work for you guys?
Like I was saying, when I was like, I have to just do it for my for work purposes too, and I was also interested, so it was that double thing where it's like I'm interested in it, and this is good because this is something that we're going to be covering then with my high schoolers. And I told my wife about it. She's like, no, I don't want to see it, and I'm like, honey, you have to, because you do youth ministry too.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, this is stuff that you, and she's like, and I'm like, besides, it's probably going to be good, and but again, we always watch movies together, so we drag each other to movies. So she was like, okay, fine, I'll watch it with you. So that's what we did. We paced it out. We always were watching it with each other, and it was good to kind of bounce off stuff that we could talk about at that time, and it was really good. And for those that don't know, a brief overview for the 13 Reasons Why, it follows the story and the premise. It's hard to spoil a show like this because the premise is already there, where it's following the story of this girl named Hannah that commits suicide. But before she does that, she leaves 7 audio cassettes, and each side is
What's
a cassette
an audio
dedicated
cassette,
to one
Derek?
person that quote unquote led to her choice to kill herself. So these tapes get sent to the front porch of this one high schooler named Clay, and Clay starts listening to it, and that's how you follow the whole narrative of the show, is listening from tape 1 when Clay starts listening to it, and all the way to the end. So yeah, for those that don't know, cassette tapes were before CDs. It was so funny, John. We were getting ready for our trip with my family, and my daughter was like, I was like, honey, we can play our DVD player in the car. And I'm like, so you have to find some of our discs that we, that are DVDs. Now we have Blu-rays, and my daughter asked me, she's like, what are DVDs? I'm like, oh my gosh, what?
There you go.
DVDs. Yeah, she's used to Blu-rays, but it was really interesting to see the cassettes being brought into this.
I thought it was
show.
really cool. Interesting way.
Yeah, so that was cool. And so yeah, he would listen to these cassettes, and each episode was focusing on a specific tape, and it follows modern day high school, and it goes on from that. So you see all these different characters in there, and soundtrack is pretty good. When you were going through the movie, John, was there a point where were you interested right away? It sounded like it kind of picked up speed at the end for you, where you're like, I gotta watch another one. What was that experience like then for you when you started it? Was it hard to push through, or was it easy to watch it?
No, it was super easy to watch. I think the show is a very easy show to watch, just in the fact that you kind of want to know what happens next. And so the first episode really grabbed me. And so have you seen House of Cards, Derek?
I've seen a couple episodes.
Okay, so House of Cards, the very beginning, even the first episode is all right, let's go, And so for me, it's almost the same thing. And these Netflix series, I think, do a great job of doing that, just kind of hooking you in for the first episode. Recently, I love, growing up, I watched or I read the books Lemony Snicket, and a series of fortunate events. Have you seen that one yet on Netflix yet?
We started watching it.
It's so good.
We want to finish it. We just didn't get
good.
that was really good so far. We haven't finished it.
Yeah, it's really good, especially the book. It's pretty pretty close to the books. So yeah, no, these Netflix series are doing a great job of just kind of bringing you in first episode. And so 13 Reasons Why is kind of the same thing. I just remember watching the first episode, and then my wife had already watched like 6 or 7 episodes by the time I watched even the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
And she was already like, watch the first episode, like just watch it. And I was like, all right. And so I watched it and I was like, yeah. So it was just kind of easy. Like, how about for you? Like, did it grab you guys easily, or were you guys
I mean, right off the bat, I thought it was, and it's one of those things, I kind of reference this to like a Harry Potter thing. When we were growing up, like all the Catholic circle said, don't read Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It's like,
so funny.
And that made it like, oh, and made my mom like against it and stuff like that. And this was kind of like the same thing. It's like, don't watch it. No one should be watching this and supporting it. And when I watched the first episode, I'm like, oh, okay, I see how this is going to be. And it's a very slickly made production where it was thoroughly like entertaining. Right in the beginning, we're like, well, I want to know more about this because the main 2 characters, especially the guy Clay, I thought were just fantastic actors.
Yeah, I think acting all around was awesome.
Yeah, it was really good. And like for the most part, there was characters that you really liked, and you get to see this unfolding of like how all this group of friends, I guess, or classmates, were all intertwined in some way.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just really easy to watch that, and it was really good to have my wife there to we kind of just chatted about things. And it was, what we didn't realize is, as a parent, it was good to start thinking about some of the stuff, like, does this really happen in high schools? So I had brought this up. We had right in the beginning of May, we had this a rosary, and we were saying it was really focused on our mothers, and also we were praying for those with mental illness and depression. So we were offering up a rosary at our high school group, and we had a discussion about this, and I was asking them questions about who has seen it, and I was very shocked at how many had seen it. There were so many that had watched it. There was only like 2 people that had not heard of it. Everyone else had heard of it, and it was being discussed at school.
Oh wow.
And all the scary stuff is, the things about drinking, the language, the shaming on social media, like all this stuff, the making of the lists, all these things, a lot of high schoolers are going through or aware of it happening at their school. And what they said was, this show was a good representation of what high school can be like, but not exactly all high schoolers are like that.
Sure.
And it was interesting too, because a lot of teens these days are going through a lot of stress with school. Some of them are struggling with depression. So it brought up a really interesting conversation about if this is a good representation of what mental illness and depression was. And it was really helpful to hear it from a teenager's viewpoint of the show. And again, when we talk about it as adults, it was very interesting too, because you're like, I have to be aware of what my kid is going through, and I have to have a conversation and communicate. Like in the show, what did you think about the way they portrayed the parents of not only the girl who killed herself, but also, the boy who had the tapes, Clay, and like some of the other parents? How did you feel it was a representation of parenting? Like, because initially what I thought, John, was that it was going to be a terrible representation, because I was like, this is going to be from a high schooler's perspective. The parents are probably going to be just aloof, and that's what I thought was going to be. Did you have a thought on the parenting?
Yeah, no, that is an interesting point of view. I actually never thought about the parents. I've always thought about the kids in the show. Yeah. But to me, I don't know, man. Like, for me, like, just watching the show, I mean, it's been a while since I've been in high school too, so
yeah, it's totally different from what I'm aware of.
What's up? Oh, yeah, exactly.
It's totally different.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, weren't you homeschooled, right, Derek?
Yeah, I was homeschooled. We went to like high school dances. We got to hang out. Which, like, a lot, but it was, again, we didn't have social media like this. It wasn't like I had to see people every day if something went wrong. Like there was periods where I didn't have to, and even like with college, like I didn't experience this stuff at college. Like it was it's just a different world that. It seems fictional when you're watching on TV, but when you hear, it's like, I can't imagine living with this kind of stress.
Sure. I went to public school. So, I mean, some of this, like I was, judging, from my point of view, Derek, like I went to public school, right? And so like I have that public school perspective, and kind of the same thing that goes on in the show. Like, yeah, dude, stuff that happens in the show, I was never aware of, but I'm not gonna lie and say these things don't happen in high school because, I think they do. You know what I mean? In some cases. But yeah, no. So for watching the show, like talking about the parents, I felt like it was a good representation of parents. There was they did a great job of having a lot of different kinds of parents. You had a parents who were stressed out about their business, right? Or parents who were in a bad relationship, or parents who just want to see their kid as perfect. And I would say even more today, Derek, like the things that I see, like being a teacher, the things that I see with parents, dealing with parents on a day-to-day basis, like, yeah, dude, like you get the whole spectrum. Like there are parents who just completely think their kid is the best, and just completely take a blind eye. Like, oh, my kid does nothing wrong, and we saw that parent in the show. And so, yeah, no, I think the show was overall well made, like top to bottom, writing, production, acting.
Yeah,
everything.
I really think, like, to me, I was surprised that, like, a lot of the parents, and we would constantly talk, like, wow, that was really good that the parents said that. And the interesting thing was, for this girl, Hannah, there was so many opportunities for her to say something to not only her parents or someone else. Like, there was always these options, and she decided not to. And again, she had like the worst luck possible throughout this whole thing. And, things started getting a little bit, just a little bit like dark, like later on in the episode. But like some of the parents would be sitting down with their kids, and you would see an opportunity, like you'd be like shouting at the TV, like, just tell them now, tell them what's going on right now. And the kids would never do it. And it made me really recognize, like, I need to, as a dad, I need to really work on my relationship now with my kids, where we can, like, you can tell me anything, like, please feel comfortable talking to me. And as a parent, I need to work harder at like asking questions. Now, right now it's tough because my daughter is just turning 6. So we're not having that many deep conversations, but she's going to be more going out there and to, playing soccer, going to school a couple days a week, staying with friends, where I need to, rather than just like, did you have fun? Yeah, I had fun. Okay, great. And I need to go further than that. I need to ask them, like, what happened? What were some of the things that were going on? Did you have fun doing? And just really reaching out to my daughter so I can establish that relationship that when she's starting to get older, she'll still feel comfortable. Now, again, we don't know what it's like to have teenagers, and you go through a lot of changes as a teenager. So
right.
I was really surprised at how, even the counselor, I felt bad for the counselor at that school. Yeah. Because in a way it felt like he was trapped there. He was, the girl should have said stuff a few times, like specifically to help out with this. But I really thought the adults, for the most part, were really good in it, as far as parenting skills and trying to help their kid. It was just a lot of the times, I hope, first of all, I don't think high schoolers, this is an older audience kind of show. Like, I'm surprised still that freshmen in high school are watching this. Like, there's a lot of dark things in this show. But I didn't get the feeling that this is something that it's going to inspire suicides. The one thing that my high schoolers had said, that they felt like it did a terrible job, and I would agree after watching it, of expressing what depression is and mental illness and how it changes like that. This girl was pretty well put together towards the end when she was able to record all these tapes and then kill herself. Like the way that she was able to really focus on that and make this kind of like a revenge story was really dark, and a lot of teens didn't feel that was like a really good representation of depression. The things that I've read about from counselors is the same kind of thing.
Well, I have some notes too I want to get into after you're done, but yeah, definitely, I totally agree with that, and I'm gonna get into that too. Yeah.
And like and the way, this is the first time for me in any show, like, where each episode I was like, it made me start to think more of like, how am I treating people? And am I asking people if they're okay? Like, and it made me appreciate my life, and also it made me want to be a better person. And there's not many films or shows that do that to me, that really make me want to take, my faith really seriously. It's like a different viewpoint of it. And this was one, and I'll tell you what, that end episode, man, I almost passed out, to be honest. Like, I could not.
I hear you, man.
First of all, I have trouble with shots.
You're like my wife.
And needles. Oh my gosh. Like, I felt
She's the same
myself
thing.
getting faint, and I was like fighting not to pass out. And then the emotional, the parents find their daughter and all this stuff. I was like emotionally and like psychologically, it messed me up. It was like, to me, I didn't feel like it glorified anything. It felt like so sad and like revolting in a way.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that it didn't look beautiful, and it made me sad. And I feel like that was the appropriate thing for it. Again, like you said too, the acting, the story, the writing, everything was really good about that show. And I personally did enjoy it a lot, and I got stuff from it. I can understand where people, if you're having a problem with like depression or hurting, like, this is not a show to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing like we talked about with silence. If you're struggling with your faith, don't throw yourself into like a movie or a book like Silence. But yeah, those are like some of just my overall thoughts. What were you gonna say now?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna piggyback off you. Kind of just, gosh, such an interesting show. Like, a very unique show. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. But I mean, I agree with you. Like, I'm hand in hand with you, dude. Like, dude, if you're struggling with mental illness or depression or just anything that happens in the show, if anything that happens, like, this show is very, it doesn't hold back when it shows things, and, we get scenes of sexual assault, suicide, sexual shaming, bullying. There are a lot of things in the show, Derek, like, that kids experience, like, on a day-to-day basis, and I think that if you are watching, if you haven't seen the show yet and you have experienced these kind of things, I don't know if it's worth watching the show, to even have those memories brought back up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're dealing with thoughts of hurting yourself or depression, again, I don't think this show is for you. Like, this doesn't show those things honestly, in my opinion. And it's kind of what you said before. Like, see, even your teens saw it, which I'm actually kind of glad that they saw it, is that the show doesn't show suicide, depression, or mental illness like in an honest manner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's like you said, like, towards the end, like, it seemed like maybe she could have gone through it, or maybe she could have just flipped, or it seemed like she was just flipping switches. And I just so when I ended the show, Derek, I think the one thing that I thought was just like, man, this is a tough show to watch, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm leaning towards not wanting people to watch this show just because of the way it portrays suicide and depression and mental illness. But then I think something just turned where I was like, it's okay. It might not be the best show to watch, but I'm glad that this show is bringing out conversations about these things that aren't being talked about, that we need to be bringing to the forefront. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people struggle with depression and mental illness and might not even know it, and this show, I think, could be something that could be talked about with someone who is, I think, trustworthy, like a parent or counselor, you, Derek, like a youth minister, a priest, or a professional, if you really need help, that, very serious professional help. The one thing that stuck, I'm sorry, my thoughts are all over the place, Derek, and I just want you to bear with me, but the one thing that really irked me about this show is that they didn't portray that suicide, depression, bullying, mental illness, honestly, because even though while bullying, like, or depression or suicidal thoughts or sexual assault even are like very serious and can drive people to suicide, the reality that I saw, or that I've read about, like, constantly, is that, suicide is rarely something avoided by good sentiments alone. You know, it's you know, it's reported that I think I saw a study like 90% of suicides are committed by people who experience diagnosable. What was that? Why can't I pronounce that word? Mental illness.
They're diagnosed as.
They're like, you would diagnose them as mental illness. You know, and it's not. And the one thing I kept screaming at the screen wasn't like, hey, you should tell. You know, you should tell them right now. Tell them. I wasn't yelling that, Derek. What I was saying was, this girl. You know, I don't want to put everything on her because some really bad, you know, S crap happened to her, but also like, she was looking for people to save her, you know? And when you look at that, you're like, these people can't read your minds, you know?
No, exactly.
I take a scene, I'm not getting into super huge spoilers, but I take a scene right at the end of the show when she was talking to the counselor and she was just like, she left, and she was like, I hope he comes out and after me, you know? And it's like, what? Like, that's so stupid, you know? Like, people can't read your mind, you know what I mean?
Well, exactly. And there's an earlier scene too where she tells, you know, Clay to stay away from her, you know, and he's like, okay, I will, because he's a good kid.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'll stay away.
And
then he's feeling guilty. He's like, well, I shouldn't have listened to her. You know, it's like, what? Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is, like, with those things, like, people can't read your minds, you know, like, and when I was seeing that, I was like, yep, that's kind of like that mental illness. I think that isn't portrayed easily. And the last thought I have, Derek, is like, guys, like, this show, it almost seems like suicide is romanticized and glorified in the show. You know, it's like Hannah reclaims control of her life by ending it.
Did you feel that way?
Yeah, a little bit, right? Like, if you look at the end, it's almost like, you know, she killed herself. And she wanted to make sure every person who had a finger in her suicide responsible, you know, or she wanted to make sure those people knew that. And it's almost like she's painted as like a martyr, you know, taking her own life and leaving a lesson behind, you know, for each of the 13 reasons. And like, to me, it's like, again, it goes back to, if you're struggling with the show, like, that isn't the way out. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not struggling with the show, if you're struggling with suicidal thoughts and you watch this show and you're like, man, she went out, like, you know, I want to go out that way. You know what I mean? Or, hey, she's affirming like suicide is a good thing. You know what I mean? In terms of, I can like make a lesson out of this, or I can get this out of this, and to me, I was just like, yeah, again, it's like, I don't know if this show's for you, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting to get different feedback from the movie, because, I mean, the show, I definitely at the end was just like, this is like, it seemed like this was avoidable. And
oh, yeah, of course.
You know, to me, it was horrific. It didn't look pleasant at all.
I skipped that scene, by the way. I don't know.
Oh, you went through the whole thing. You should have just seen that.
I felt like, so
because that's, to me, the pinnacle moment.
I hear you, but to me, it wasn't about the ending of the show, or wasn't about that. It was about the journey you know, more than. And I feel like that's what the show was about. It's about the journey. You know, we already know the ending. You know what I mean? Spoiler alert, right? But to me, it was the journey, and again, like, I didn't need to see that. You know what I mean? Like, I know what happened. You know, I just skipped like a couple seconds of it, just of her doing the deed. And I was just like, I don't need to see it, you know? Like, I understand, like, it has a powerful, you know, it has a powerful thing to it. But for me as a parent, I was like, I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I was wrong. Sorry if I was wrong for that, but
no,
that's just how I felt.
The end, too, for me, the message, like, that I got from it was especially the way that the people were dealing with it afterwards, and how they were starting to fix their lives. You see the girl that's struggling with alcohol. She's dumping it down the drain. You know, the girl starts talking to her father about the assault that she, you know, like, people were starting to change, which was, to me, like, I felt like Hannah was just trying to stick it to people. And at the end, I was feeling that people were starting to not be hurt by it, but heal from the things they found out about themselves. And I felt it was a somewhat positive ending. because of those reasons.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
you know, you see some of the characters. The one guy, Justin, one of the jocks early on, he went through a lot of stuff where you can see this person taking his own life, but he fought through like a lot of that stuff. You know, he was abandoned, you know, by his parents, being manipulated by his best friend, his, you know, the friends taking the girl away from him. He's, you know, all this stuff, like, and to see some of these people get through that was really good. And then I don't know, did you watch the half-hour episode after it? It was like
What?
13 Reasons More or something like that, and it was talking about
yeah,
specific things about, like, you know, like, it was a very good message that they're, you know, giving through that as like kind of like an epilogue with the storytelling and the, you know, just topic. I thought it was
I'll have
really
to
good
check it
thing to
out.
watch after it.
I
felt like it was really good, and it made me appreciate some more things that I didn't initially.
Yeah.
You know, for me, the show, about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a friend that I had gone through the homeschooling group we were high school with, and then we went through college, and, you know, we kind of were in contact on Facebook, and 4 or 5 years ago he attempted to take his life, and it was tough because he didn't die right away, and he died later in the hospital, and I remember being very thankful to God for that, because I mean, our understanding of suicide as Catholics is suicide is something we shouldn't be doing. Like, I had pulled up some stuff on you know, from the Catechism, and the one thing like that I really got from when my friend attempted suicide, and he did die eventually later, the one last thing in the Catechism, which is 2283, it says, "We should not despair of the eternal salvation of persons who have taken their own lives. By ways known to him alone, God can provide the opportunity for salutary repentance. The Church prays for persons who have taken their own lives." That is something that has always given me hope in these situations when I hear about people that kill themselves, is that we don't know what they're going through, you know, and that's the one thing, is like culpability for some people is lower because of some things that they might be going through. It says grave psychological disturbances, anguish, or grave fear of hardship, suffering, or torture can diminish the responsibility of the one committing suicide. I just love the fact that even at the very end, like in that moment when my friend tried to kill himself, and there's this period for mercy and grace to come into his life, where before he died, who knows if he asked for forgiveness, what God's mercy done, or also what had led him up to that point. The same thing I feel for like Hannah. That was the one thing I didn't like about the show, is not one time was there prayer mentioned. You know, like in any of these hardships, there wasn't an opportunity to just stop and pray about it or pray for someone else. And to me, that was like the one thing I didn't like about the show. The Catholic faith was only mentioned one time, and that was a passing by Tony, and I think
that was
some
awesome.
other thing. And it was just like,
I'm Catholic. I don't believe in that.
It was never prayer or understanding that we have to take on suffering. And the other thing is that the main message of Hannah that I didn't like, there was, as Catholics, we need to forgive, and we need to forgive our enemies and our wrongdoers. And there was really no forgiveness going on in this, you know, especially in her journey. And there was no prayer going on. And these were things that we talked about with the teens, about like, these are some things that, you know, communicating with counselors and priests and parents are an amazing thing, but you also have to communicate with God and create that dialogue. And those are just some things that, you know, who knows what happens in these like dark moments, and God is able to just that tiny bit of light, and he can grab your hand and take you out of these situations. And, you know, like you were mentioning, if you are having like some struggles with whatever it is, start like talking about it, because once you start talking about it, you're taking control, and you have the power to make people aware of what you're going through. You know, like you had mentioned too, you can't read people's minds, and these are great things just to be able to talk with people who care, pray, and start even these forgiveness things. Like, it's tough to do, but when someone wrongs you, we have to try our best to, forgive. So I don't know. There was, you and I definitely, I think it was good that we watched this, especially as dads, to kind of keep this in the back of our mind. Is there any other final thoughts that you want to kind of throw out there?
Yeah, two things. I think the show is a good show to have out there just because it does bring these things to the forefront that I think need to be talked about more. Mental illness and suicidal thoughts and everything that happened in the show. Basically, I think if you take anything positive about this show, and even the show, like I watched a video today, with the whole cast, and they talked about the response to the show. Like, people were Facebooking, leaving them messages and stuff like that, and I just saw an overwhelming positive response of like, hey, my kid has been, thinking about this, and this really helped me out. Or like, hey, like my son watched the show together, and now we're having this conversation about that I could never bring up before, And for me, it's just like, those are all good things, right? Like, to talk to our kids, like, man, it sucks because I think your kid has to be age appropriate for this show, and I don't even know what age appropriate is anymore. Just because
it's got to be high school, right? To at least start the conversation.
Yeah, I guess, but like, you look at the society nowadays. Yeah. I have some kids in my 4th grade classroom playing Grand Theft Auto, and I'm like, well, this wouldn't, anything in that show would be something you could find on Grand Theft Auto. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, again, if you take anything positive, I think talking about this kind of things are good, just because we can talk about these things. They need to be talked about, right? And final thoughts for me, Derek, is how do we, because I think, we're a Bad Catholic Dads podcast. We're all about fatherhood. How do we go about, for me and you, we don't have teens, but I guess looking to the future, how do we go about, bringing these kind of things up with our children? Because, one day, God willing, our kids hopefully will never have these thoughts, but we don't know, right? Like, at least for me, I know the show gave me a perspective on, okay, like you said in the beginning of the show, like, we need to be involved in our kids' lives, not just, hey, how was your day? Good. Okay. Bye. More go into it. You should have a situation where your kids are comfortable coming to you. You know what I mean? And they're not going to come to you for everything, but at least come to you when there's a problem or when they need to talk to you. For me, I'm like, okay, how do I do that? And then the second thing I think that us dads need to be thinking about is, how do we get our kids to not only, come to us, but have a foundation in the church, have a foundation in Jesus, having them, go to youth ministry events, and having them, if they're not relying on me, or my wife, Fatima. By the way, getting some serious slack here from our wives. They're like, why do they keep saying wives? They can say our names on the podcast. Like,
protecting their identity.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like, if they're not talking to us, I hope they're talking to God and Jesus,
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's the thing. I mean, like we've talked about before, we need to establish this Catholic identity in our children. And so they do know that Christ had suffered, and we're going to be called to suffer at times. And we are going to all have the different crosses and burdens that we can carry. And just like Christ, though, Christ had help from Simon, like someone can help you carry that cross where you don't have to do it all yourself, whether that be a parent, a guardian, priest, someone can help you carry this burden. And it takes that communicating. And I think that's like you were saying, like we've been saying, we have to just keep opening that dialogue up with our children. And I think this show coming out has been awesome for conversation, not only with younger people, but also with, dads and, guys our age, where this is something that's not to be brushed over. As a society, we're told that, you have to man up sometimes and hide your feelings, but, you got to show some of those feelings. You can't just bury them all the time. So I think it's a great conversation to have. And again, we have to keep forming and getting these habits and virtues going in our Catholic faith, knowing that we're not going to live a life that is pain-free and suffering-free, and that's going to happen. And just as long as that our kids know, just like, our kids can run to us with open arms, we can run to our Father, with open arms as well. And there's healing in that, and just that offering up just that love to a parent figure, whether it be mom, dad, or God. And yeah, I just think it's a really great conversation to have. Again, if anybody is struggling with any like depression, or I know tonight I'm going to pray specifically for any of our listeners or anyone else, and I'm sure John will do that too, but just pray that, for some guidance and some peace and wisdom of God of what they're going through. Like, definitely pray for those people tonight.
Yeah. And if you ever need to talk, DM us, email us. We're not licensed psychiatrists or psychologists, but we can be we have open ears, and we can point you in the direction of someone, who's a little more professional than us, like a priest or someone, professional. I know a bunch of psychiatrists, and is that what they're called? Psychiatrists? Yeah.
Yep, psychiatrists. So, and, look, prayers are going to be powerful too. Yeah. So we can definitely get us a direct message for prayers, for sure.
I hear you. Let's go. Nice.
All right. So, all right.
How do you follow that up, man? Serious conversation here.
Yeah.
Oof.
Serious conversation.
Heavy. That's heavy.
You want any shout outs or anything right now?
I don't. I was looking. Oh, yeah. I have a shout out. Shout out to my friend, our close friends, Joanne and Jake. If you're listening, hey guys, we miss you guys. They live up in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh area. They gave a nice donation to us for Bad Catholic Dads. So honestly, like, more than I could ever, thought they could give, or they would give us. But thank you so much. Know that you're guys, if you guys donate to us on Patreon, I want you to know that all your money comes in and goes right, or all your money comes to us and goes right back into making this community, this ministry, this podcast better. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you. I don't really have any shout outs at all.
No new iTunes reviews. Leave us a review on iTunes, please. We haven't got one. Since,
that reminds me. My wife, I guess,
April 27.
My wife had a message, because she reposted, I think, the Bobby Angel one, and her friend that is in California, that she's really not, I don't know if she's in contact that much, but she was like, oh my gosh, like, this is your husband? I was like listening to this podcast the other day, and I had no idea that connection, that was you. And it was like, that was a kind of a cool moment.
That's really cool.
There was someone Catholic that
How did she find it? That's awesome.
Connection. And then she was just listening to it, and then she sees my wife post something like, wait, you're connected with that? And Bethany was like, yeah, actually. And my wife told me about that. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool when like people are like, oh, I think I know that person. That's awesome. Yeah.
No, and here's some more of that happening. That's really good. So you can find us on YouTube, on iOS, SoundCloud, Google Play, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just leave us a review, especially on the iTunes thing, like John was saying. It helps us out a lot. Just a thumbs up, a comment, anything, any shout out kind of thing. It just helps. It helps just a lot. So we really appreciate that. Anything else, John?
Nope. That's it.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening. This is episode 10 with Bad Catholic Dads. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you, guys.